Hey, baby boy, what happened to your hand?
Baby boy, Jesus.
Hey, baby boy.
Joey and I were talking before the start of this, and all of a sudden his tone shifted. He called me baby boy. What the fuck? That threw me for a loop.
Yeah,
I see. It's because I'm injured and you're being sympathetic. I see.
I think so. It looks like you're injured. I mean, again, I'm doing the thing where we're doing a podcast, which people mostly aren't watching, and I'm acknowledging your visual injury. But you're very apparently wearing a wrist brace.
Yeah, I've been wearing one for the last maybe week or so. Remember when I told you that I tweaked my knee? And I also kind of tweaked my wrist, but it was more my knee that I was focused on.
Yeah, that was off the show too. Like we talked a lot about that. I think only a little made it on the show.
No, I re-listened to the podcast. We talked enough about it. It's actually how we closed out the show. Remember? We sold out for our Patreon because we both would need surgery.
I did, but I also edited some of that down.
Well, either way, I listened to it. But either way, the knee was the thing I was a little bit more concerned about, but not super concerned. It just seemed like it would probably heal fine. And it's still not great, but it is healing. But then, kind of concerning, this was on the Thursday that I first got here, that I did this, right? And I have tweaked it and done some not great things to it. I did yoga. So I think that probably wasn't great and stuff like that. I basically didn't treat it as kindly as I should have. But a little bit concerning that I did that 5 weeks ago. And all of a sudden this last weekend, it got extremely bad. Extremely bad. I could not use my right hand, and I was in a lot of pain. And what I initially was worried about was carpal tunnel. And it actually ends up that it's the opposite of that, of what I was feeling. I'm not sure if this is actually it, but this
did you see a doctor?
No, I have not.
Okay.
The symptoms that I have looked up look a lot more like what is on the other side of your arm. Or carpal tunnel is the bottom part of your forearm that connects to your palm sort of area.
Yep.
Radial tunnel is the ligaments or whatever that are on the top part of your forearm, the outer part of your arm. And I was experiencing that because it went from my wrist and I ended up getting a really sharp stinging pain in the upper part of my forearm. It spread down to there. And it was constant and painful. So yeah, I was really fucked up for 2 days. We ended up calling a nurse and talking to her. Pretty much my options were going to the emergency room, and I'm pretty certain that this is not something that I'm not all of a sudden magically going. They're not gonna fucking put medicine.inc in me, and all of a sudden I'm gonna be good. This is probably something that takes extensive physical therapy or surgery, if it is that bad. So, but what I think is I think I just sprained my wrist a long time ago. Didn't actually let it heal quite well enough. I think I tweaked it one more time, probably in my sleep is I think what happened, because I woke up and it was really bad. And I think it just inflamed something and put pressure on some nerves, and that ended up putting me into some really fucking rough pain.
It sounds like you have some imaging in your future when you get back to Los Angeles.
Yeah, probably. I mean, we'll see how well. Just now, I feel a lot better, and it's only been 2 or 3 days.
Okay.
Since, so it got real bad real quick, and it got real better real quick. So I don't know exactly what to make of that, but we'll see how I feel by the time I'm actually back in Los Angeles.
I'm terrified. One of my largest fears is developing degenerative wrist problems or hand problems, just because of the nature of our work and also the games that we like to play. Like it's very selfish. My mom was a dental hygienist, and she had to stop that profession because she got carpal tunnel. And I don't think that it's really a genetic predisposition. I think that she's a lot of like stuff not great. But because she was afflicted with it, I've always been worried about it and try and do things like right now. I'm actually I'm using a trackball as my mouse because I like to switch up my input devices every now and then just to kind of mix it up. So that I'm not like doing too much repetitive strain and doing like any RSI stuff. I've
been pretty conscious of like just like posture and stuff like that, particularly with my wrists and stuff like that. So I've been pretty careful with that. The thing is that carpal tunnel is like, that's like a scary thing. It seems to me everything I looked up about radial tunnel, which if this is even that seems like something that is just like, a month, some therapy, it goes away, it heals 100%. Whereas carpal tunnel is one of those like scary, like, oh, you're going to be dealing with this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, you're going to be one of those old people in commercials taking a bunch of Aleve or something.
Exactly. So, if this is even that, it doesn't seem like it's that big of a deal. But I think more likely I just sprained my wrist and some sort of inflammation really like fucked me in a bad way.
So while we're doing like the public podcast pain WebMD thing, I actually just want to make like a CTA for anybody who might have sciatic problems, because I have questions about it now.
What remind me what that is?
It's like the nerve from like the bottom of your back that goes all the way like down your legs, like when you have sciatica. It's like chronic back pain potentially that like affects the leg.
Right.
So I when I went to Vegas a couple weeks ago and I drove for the first time ever, I had not trouble, but like I had discomfort driving and being in like that seated position with my legs that angle for a longer period of time. And ever since then, and when I've been going to the gym or just like walking around, I've been getting like some numbness in my heel and some general discomfort and restlessness in my left leg, the same leg that I think my knee's fucked up in. I doubt they're related, but who knows? And I've been looking up a bunch of like sciatic stuff or like what could be going on, because suddenly I'm worried that when I'm laying down, like my foot is going numb or it's uncomfortable to sit in specific situations. If that sounds familiar to anybody, just drop me a line in the comments below, because I have some questions. I should probably see a doctor.
Who says America doesn't have socialized healthcare? We just outsource it to the social media. Isn't that what everybody means? Socialized healthcare, social media healthcare?
That's actually I don't know if that is like someone's bit, like a stand-up bit, but you could 100% make that into like a solid like 60 to 90 seconds for a stand-up bit. That's a really there's a really good joke there.
I'm really good at that. I feel like sometimes I'm really good at coming up with clever ideas for jokes, but I can never perfect it well enough to make it a good punchline.
You would be great in a writer's room, because someone else can make it funnier, but you just gotta have good ideas. I was going to ask you when you were talking about the wrist thing, like how's that healthcare work as an independent contractor? That I'm like, well, that's sad. Let me just barrel on through that. You know what else? You know what else makes me sad? Being a fan of karaoke.
Yeah, that causes real despair nowadays. That's a rough one.
So we're filming this a little bit later. We're filming this a day later than normal, which gave us the opportunity to wait for the Nigma Liquid game to finish, which I had a fun time watching. I woke up at 6 a.m. because my dog woke me up because he had to fucking pee, and then I was just up, so I figured I'd watch the games, right? And I had a good time as a Liquid fan, but had a little bit of remorse as someone who generally has positive vibes for the Nigma roster, a roster that I think that we've both defended pretty publicly in the last couple of weeks, but they are going to Division 2. For reals, and haven't really won a game.
You know what's really fucking funny, cool, ironic, terrible? There's a possibility that Secret joins them down to the lower division. Could you imagine that? Puppy and Kuro in the lower division together.
I think there's
no.
I think there's no way that happens just because of the remaining schedule. That means that like because who do they still play? Don't they play like
Entity
Brame or Entity?
Entity's Secret is an upcoming match that is very important because they are both on the cusp. So one win over the other could be exactly what determines who ends up going down. Even if it does end up that, there's still basically a possibility of tiebreakers between them as well. So a lot of things would have to happen. But to be honest, Secret got a little lucky. They could have a very real future in lower division if they didn't get the schedule that they got. Not to like amp up Liquid too much, but they obviously look a lot better now than they did at the start of the season. And guess when Secret played them? At the start of the season. They played them first. So, I think that was a really fortunate time for Secret to play Liquid. If they didn't get that victory, then they would currently be sitting at a score of 1-4. And then they would be in a must-win scenario to beat Entity and still end up in a tiebreaker potentially. So
yeah, I think that's true. I think Secret is also benefiting from the fact that Nigma are currently 1-12 and have lost all of their games because that like solidifies someone to be eliminated, and they're kind of fighting for like 7th spot, 6th, 7th instead of having a worse record. So
they're also they're also going to play Nigma, which is part of the reason why you feel good about them. But I'll just remind people, Curl versus Puppy has been a long-standing rivalry. And Curl has had the advantage, I think, historically. So I'm just saying that, like, this team does know how to turn up randomly, it seems like. They show up at LAN events, right? And I even feel like sometimes in some of these games, like, I remember they, in their game against Game of Gladiators, I think it was, like, they actually
that's their only
showed
win.
Up
their only map win was against Gaming Gladiators.
Yeah, they had some like team. They had one game that was like over. They had lost, but they played out the last team fight, and they played it super well. Like those players on that team can execute. They can actually. They were outplaying them while being like 15K net worth down. So it didn't do anything. They still lost the team fight, but they were doing it. Miracle's still quite good. GH is still quite good. And the other guys are definitely no slouches. ILTW, I don't think is the problem, but they ended up replacing ILTW today. Didn't magically fix anything.
Shocking.
Could not save the roster, it seems.
Poor guy. I'm pretty confident. So I think in order for Secret to be relegated, it would have to be a comedy of errors because they would need to lose to Nigma. Which I agree is totally possible. Like, we shouldn't count that out. And I think that it would be really fun from a storyline perspective if that happened. And also, then they would have to lose the tiebreaker to Entity. Assuming that they beat Entity.
They also haven't played Entity.
Yeah.
If they lose both of those, they would still end up in a tiebreaker, most likely against Brame, who Brame just got trashed today by OG and will probably get trashed in the coming days by Tundra. So,
can I pause for a second? I have a very selfish question to ask from a person who's on camera. I want some advice. Yeah. I want some advice. I am consistently having problems saying Entity.
Entity.
And I don't think I want to say titty.
I think about it as titties. They're against titties. No titties. They're only ass men on that team.
They're in titties. I'm sorry.
I don't know.
And so on the show that I do for Team Liquid, where I talk about the news, I consistently have problems reading Entity in the prompter, and even right now, I'm struggling to think about it and say it right. So do you ever get mental blocks about any of these words or teams?
Yeah, conscious.
Yeah.
I can't say the first time I say that word, it never works out.
Yeah, it was wrong the first time.
For whatever reason, it's My brain just really wants to screw that up. Sometimes you just have those words.
Interesting.
Conscionable. I could say that, but conscious, for whatever reason, I screw it up the first time I say it. It's weird. Your brain's funny like that, you know? It's all pathways, you know? And somewhere, somehow, sometime, your brain fucked up that pathway, but it just keeps on going down that same pathway, you know?
And
just like,
entity. Well, yeah.
Entity.
Maybe
have you tried not hitting the T super hard?
And
Try and make the first T more like a D. Entity.
Entity.
Yeah.
Entity.
You put the I before the T. Entity. Entity.
Yeah. Well, I'm an idiot and should never be on camera. DPC.
But that's your job.
I mean, it is. I would say 15% of it. Maybe it should be more. Should probably be less. So yeah, OG secures their top spot. Nigma definitely relegated. Gonna be interesting to see them in Division 2 because I'm interested in what they're gonna do with the roster. Do you think that like the answer is they're going to play with Fada for the rest of the year?
I mean, I thought they were going to we've talked about this a couple times where I was like, if they don't get wins, like surely they're going to change the roster. And like I talked about how ILTW is like the obvious man out. I don't necessarily think he's the problem.
Is
but
it
the
Fada,
other
though?
4-1 TI together.
Is Fada the answer?
I mean, there was some crazy theories going on. People are talking about like maybe Kuro would kick himself and become the coach, and they could keep Fada as a 5 position or something like that. Let me just say, if Kuro does something like that, then I think he is broken. I think he has become a broken man
Mentally.
because I think that that person is way too driven. And cares too much about like his legacy and like the work that he has done, right? Like he has put a lot of time and effort into this. I think he really has the drive to be a champion.
I agree.
And wants that, right? And I think downgrading yourself to coach, maybe it is the best thing for them, but I just can't see him doing that. But
like it's
maybe
admitting
I'm wrong.
defeat.
Like I don't know him that well, so who knows?
Yeah, it's almost like he's admitting that he's kind of done. Like he's like the fire that was burning really big and bright is like smaller, and he might have lost confidence.
And to be
in
clear,
himself.
I'm talking about mid-season. Like maybe after this TI, he does hang it up and like goes the coaching route or something like that. But I think mid-season giving up on that means like something broke. So I mean, I have to assume, of course, they're going to make some roster change, right? Like, if you're getting kicked down to lower division, I figure, like Alliance, it probably means, like, okay, we got to shift things up. And there is, like, especially the mid-season change, why that would be so desperate is there's still qualifiers for TI, and let's not forget, there's this last chance qualifier for TI as well. So even if, let's say, Nigma and Secret did go down to lower division together, they could both still make it through, technically, right? So, yeah, that's just one little bit. But it does mean you go down this season, you're zero chance you're going to TI off of points. So, that
because you'll get none in season 3 or the season 2 major. I think that it's interesting that there's still a lot of people who like aren't following the DPC as closely and are mostly just people who are around for the majors in TI. These are results that are shocking to the people who like are following a little bit looser week to week. Because 1 in 12 is an impressively bad result for a team that you wouldn't expect that from. And it kind of does mark the narrative that has been going around of some, guard changing and young teams doing well. Not which existed like more in China and a little more in Eastern Europe, but a little less so in Western Europe. So I'm interested to see what kind of storylines it creates. I think that the most fun and chaotic answer would be Team Secret fuck it up and also getting relegated. Also, then season 3 would look wild because you'd have like Alliance and S4 snack back with like Brave and Entity and Gaming Gladiators and Tundra and all these teams that people don't think about as like quote tier 1 orgs.
Yeah. There's a chance that Alliance stays in Division 2 with Nigma. That would also be very interesting, very hype, because currently Goon Squad is on the trajectory to be first. Alliance, if they lose against Chicken Fighters, will end up in a three-way tiebreaker with Chillax, Chicken Fighters, and Alliance, obviously. So that would be pretty interesting as well. And Chicken Fighters is not a bad team. So, yeah. Yeah. Super interesting, super fun stuff going on in Europe right now.
Have I ever told you that I'm like a low-key Era fan?
Oh, Era is a lovely person. Very, very lovely.
That makes me happy. I've never once met or talked to that human being, but like ever since Old Fanatic and then NIP days, I've always just rooting for Era a little bit.
So we bonded over our belief that old Techies was a viable hero. Yeah. We bonded over that at some point in time.
New Techies is clearly a viable hero because I've seen multiple people play with it, and it almost kind of looks silly because very layman's analysis, tell me if this is right. The silence from Blast Off is crazy. Mm-hmm. And the damage is high.
Mm-hmm.
Is that like the long and short of it?
Yeah, pretty much. I mean, we talked about the new Techies, right? I told you what hero it was. It's Skywrath Mage, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And guess what hero is very viable right now? Skywrath Mage. So
a hero with a silence and a lot of damage potential.
Silence, massive nuking potential, also magic resistance amp is another factor that they both do. They're literally just both. They're the same hero, just like slightly different toolkits, but they're the same hero. So yeah, Sky is probably a little bit more reliable. Techies has perhaps Techies might be better when you're ahead, because like the shard is really impactful. Then you have an AoE stun, which Skywrath doesn't have. But yeah, I think the meta favors Techies right now, and the fact that he basically is a 3 ability hero says a lot. Now imagine if Reactive Taser was a real ability. That hero would actually be OP, but he currently has a bug. There is a bug with that hero that he just doesn't have a 4th ability, so very sad.
I don't even know what Reactive Taser is supposed to do. Should I admit that publicly? Does that make me less cool? I actually don't know what the new ability is.
You get, if he pops it and you hit him, you get disarmed. That's the mostly long and short of it. There's also an explosion that disarms. Even if you don't hit him, it'll go for a while and then it explodes and disarms everybody who gets hit by it. But that's like, it's mostly about him being able to disarm people that try and hit him, because you jump in and then you Reactive Taser so people can't hit you while you jumped in.
So it's like, I'm a troll, I want to blink on you, and like, this Techies is alone, and then he goes, you it's like I got a halberd.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like I got a free halberd, and then my team's there, and then you're silenced.
Better Techies will set it up where I think it goes for like 5 seconds before it explodes, but it's like better Techies will activate it, wait, and then jump in so you explode the disarm even if they don't hit you, and then you drop mines, and then they can't hit the mines because they're disarmed. That's like kind of like the intention of the play, but it just doesn't actually work that way. It doesn't work like that. The delay is like too long, because most of the time you're not able to like plan out, okay, I'm gonna blast off in 3 seconds. That's like, most of the time Dota's a little bit faster paced than that. Yeah. So yeah, that hero's been played a decent amount in NA and a little bit Europe.
Are we gonna see Techies contested at the major?
Yeah, I think for sure somebody will definitely play Techies. Contested is maybe too strong of a word, but somebody will pick it for sure. Whether or not it becomes mainstream is a different answer, but with a really big group stage, I think teams want to be able to fish out, especially if Sand King Skywrath continues to be a relatively big deal in the meta, then I think that Techies as an alternate to Skywrath, you want to be leading the meta, right? You want to be... There was actually a really interesting interview off of NA where I asked Four Zoomers Captain Husky about Moo Moo has been playing like offlane Faceless Void, and basically
what year is it?
yeah, exactly.
Is it like
and his team would be
2012?
like, why can't we just play offlane DK? And his response is like, you'll never make it to like the grand finals of TI just doing what other people do, right? So like you want to be developing, you want to be on the edge. You want to be figuring out what's good before other people figure out. So it makes sense to try and grab heroes that not everybody's picking, So
This tracks. You mentioned the major a little bit. I believe the new format has been released officially, so we kind of know what's going on. Do you know off the top of your head?
This whole DPC thing, first place goes to playoffs, and second place goes to groups, and maybe the third and fourth place goes to wild card. Like that whole setup of the DPC, that all of a sudden just mid-season got taken out because all of a sudden we were just like, oh yeah, here's the major format, and it's all group stage. And my conspiracy theory, Joey, this is my Valve conspiracy theory hour. Time to talk about the dark, deep secrets of Valve and what I think's going on in their ivory tower. I think that yes, this is an improvement on the current system. That all the teams going to groups is probably favorable. It does, small note, it does hurt NA and SA more because like before the other regions got wildcard slots, and NA and SA didn't get those. Now they get group stage spots, and NASA don't get any of those. But my conspiracy theory is they did this because it is way easier to distribute those slots from Eastern Europe to other regions, as well as the fact that if the Chinese teams decline the major, it's easier to fix that, right? If the Chinese teams decline the major and you have the old format, okay, well now you have an extra upper bracket spot, you have an extra group stage spot, and you have 2 extra wildcard spots. Like that just becomes really messy. Like we saw that from the Singapore major or something like that. There was 1 slot missing, wild card, so like half the teams made it. It was just like, it was kind of fucky. But it's a lot better if it's like, okay, all of a sudden like 4 teams are missing. Okay, it goes from 2 groups of 9 to 2 groups of 7, right? Bada bing, bada boom. Super easy. Everyone gets a fair shot. No problem. That's my conspiracy theory about why this changed. I have no evidence to back that up.
I would go as far as to say that because it is far and away totally reasonable, which I guess some people get in trouble because a lot of conspiracy theories can seem reasonable. There's no world in which I don't think that's correct. I'm pretty sure what you're saying is very close to the truth because they're probably planning out what's going to happen if they need a contingency option for the major. Because, like you said, what do we do with the upper bracket team? What do we do with the wildcard team? Are we going to have a wildcard stage that has like 2 teams play like a best of 5? Like, what does it go, right? So, easier to distribute Eastern Europe, potentially easier to distribute
Think
China.
about what the wildcard match would look like at that point in time, right? Remember, last time it was 3 out of the 6 teams would go. Well, then it would be 3 out of the 4 teams in the wild card would go to the group stage. In which case, everybody would be sitting there going, "What's the fucking point? Why are we playing these matches if 3 out of 4 of them?" First of all, it's just like that 4th team is like, well, go fuck yourself. And then 3 of those teams, or at least like 2 of them, are going to be like, okay, why are we playing these matches? We're pretty much guaranteed going into the group stage where we're just going to play another fucking group stage, Like, it would look so fucking pointless. So that's why. Also, the fact that this happened kind of weirdly mid-season, it was basically like, here's the major format, and I can't imagine ESL just like makes the major format and Valve isn't a part of it, right? Like Valve seems to be in control of formats and a lot of the rulings and stuff like that, right? So that's why I think it was just dropped mid-season rather than it being like, hey, new season, everybody, and guess what? We're going to be changing the format to be something more like you guys have suggested, right? So
has anybody complained about this?
No, because like it affects the teams, but like the first place teams, they didn't really care that much about being directly in the playoffs in the first place. Many of them
I've heard some of them
considered it to be
didn't
a
want that.
disadvantage.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Right? So you want the first place spot for the points, but maybe you don't want, like, I'm sure there's one or two teams that maybe prefer the guaranteed playoffs upper bracket, but for the majority, it seemed like they preferred group stage. Because if you're first place in your region, probably is, you're shooting to win the major. And if you want to win the major, chances are you probably want the group stage to be able to grow and get better. So yeah, and then the other effect is that the wildcard teams get directly seeded into groups, so it's not like they're going to complain about that.
No, that's
a
great.
bonus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Has anybody mentioned if this is like just a temporary format change for season 2?
No, you just said that's the format for the major, so I assume we're going to keep it for the third major, because why would we change major formats at all?
Especially, I mean,
we're not going to be keeping it.
I don't necessarily imagine that the situation is going to change too much for the Eastern European teams in a month, right?
Yeah.
So
the next question is, what do we do with the Eastern European slots? Right? I have a theory that you could, I'm not saying this is what's going to happen, but you could divvy them up. If they get 3 slots, divvy one up to NA, SA, and Southeast Asia. So it would be 4-4-3-3. 4-4-4-3-3-3, right? Western Europe and China would still get their 4s. Southeast Asia would now have 4 slots. And then North and South America, which you still deem as like the lesser regions, okay, they get 3 slots. You know? I think that would be like relatively fair. People are obviously going to point out South America, they deserve the third best South American team, but like, you know, if you're going to divvy up the slots, like...
How dare you? I'm a giant fan of Gillette Infinity.
Scratches Temple. Apu, King of Kings. Sick name, by the way. I love that name. Apu, King of Kings.
I mean, if you extrapolate that out even further, what do we do for TI for the Eastern European teams?
Yeah. I think I don't think it's I think it would be warranted if I think they should invite team spirit at bare minimum. I think you should reinvite the TI winners. I think, yeah, you probably try and do some sort of Eastern Europe invitational or something like that to determine 2 or 3 slots or something like that. But I am curious just for this major if they try and do that as well, right? And if so, like, how far do you stretch that, you know? Like, do you invite Team Spirit because they won TI and they're obviously the best team there? Do you invite anybody else? Do you have, like, a 4-team or 8-team? Like, you know, like, these sort of things are really left a lot of question marks there. Maybe they just don't do anything with those slots and we just are missing 3 teams, right? Because I'm pretty sure the way they were talking, it was 18 teams.
Mm-hmm.
Was that including the Eastern European teams?
Well,
it was, right?
4 is 8, and then another 3 is 11, and then another 2 is 13, and then another 2 is 15. So, yeah, I think that if they're talking about 18 teams, that's saying 3 Eastern European teams that are somehow decided.
Yeah, so the major announcement didn't say anything about those spots or anything, so... Yeah, Valve probably has some sort of plan. I'm very curious to see what it is because, like I'm talking about right now, I could see multiple different ways you could do this, and I think none of them are exactly fair, but I think they all are decent solutions.
I think the reality of the situation is that I think there is nothing that is perfect, but a lot of things that are close. So anybody who is complaining, like the people who will probably have the most valid complaints are the people who are on the fringes who are directly affected. Like I can understand if someone in Hellraisers is upset with the situation because maybe they could have, maybe they couldn't have, right? Similar with, maybe like a Puck Champ or Windstrike or what have you, right?
All I know is that bare minimum, I would probably reinvite Team Spirit to TI. No matter what my decisions are going to be, like I probably would bring... Because you also have precedent, right? They used to be an old Valve rule that you would just reinvite the previous winner. Just bring that back. Is anybody really going to hate that? you know?
I would like to see the
so.
people who try and hate that, because I think they would be a really small minority, and I think people would also be like, "Are you fucking kidding me right now? Look at the news." Like,
Yeah. Because the question is like, how do you? Because I believe Team Spirit is now in Serbia. Do you make that, and do you go like, okay, the teams who are like safe in an area that they can play? Do you let the Russians teams play? Like, you shouldn't ban Russian players. Maybe you ban certain orgs if you feel like that contributes to, whatever you want to whatever political statement you want to be able to make. But like, you definitely don't ban the actual players themselves in any way. I don't think so. But like, simultaneously, if you go forward with that, then that's unfair to some Ukrainian players and teams who just can't, right? They just can't. They can't maybe leave their country because, they there's obviously that draft thing going on. So it's a mess. It's a mess. There's a lot of questions. Nothing's going to be right. Nothing's going to be fair.
The boring thing here is that I just agree with you. I know we touched on this a little bit last week. I spent a lot of my weekend, the prior weekend, on Reddit Place, and making the Navi logo appear on the Ukrainian flag. So I feel like, I properly virtued all of my values out into the internet to support both Dota and Ukraine at the same time.
I'm sure Zelensky himself thanks you for your service.
Yeah, it's truly the least I could do. I hate that I'm even making a joke about it and downplaying it, because I hope everybody there's doing well. I know people are listening to the show from.
I'm just laughing at the fact that you're still committed to that our place stuff.
So the thing is that what ended up happening was I did the thing that I do when I get excited about a thing, which I just turn into I turn into work. And then there was a Discord server. I was like managing people. I was like talking to people. It was like a passive game over the weekend.
Okay, so question: how did you coordinate with other subreddits? Like, did you coordinate with some, like, the Ukraine subreddit?
Correct.
Of like, hey, we want to add this to your flag. Are you guys chill with that? We're not messing up the flag. We're just adding this. You guys good with that?
There was a whole network of allies that like happened between different places. Like, there were more allies in Ukraine. There was also like the Counter-Strike people were above us. We were helping them with the dick problem they were having, and it's like a multifaceted Discord group of allies and axes. And we did talk a lot with the Ukrainian people, because we decided that, Dota and Navi and other things that are symbolic, like, kind of fit together in the little corner we had. They really wanted us to remove the Juggernaut
face. You guys got a real
face.
NATO going on.
I know, right? Don't expand close to Putin. We wanted to replace the Juggernaut face we had with a little Dendy pixel art, but that was a little hard to fix. So, Dota and Ukraine together again.
Well, that is nice. That is nice.
I saw a piece of news that I was interested in. Actually, Tsunami brought this up to me in a lightly braggadocious way. He sent me a link to a Twitter post for the sports Emmys, and said, "I'm a 2-time Emmy-nominated broadcaster, Joey. What the fuck have you done in media lately?" And
yeah. I guess I am too now.
Fuck! Damn. Are you gonna add that to your IMDb profile? Like, that's kind of exciting, right?
I'll add it if we win. How about that? I'll add it. Add Emmy
award-winning talent, sports broadcasting.
Is the sports Emmy a thing? When I saw this, I was just like, okay, is this one of those like awards that nobody gives a shit about, or is this like a real award thing? I honestly don't know. I mean, I don't really give a shit either way, but like, does the general public care about this shit?
So the sports Emmys have been going on for a while, like,
okay,
over 40 years. So the answer is, I don't think the general public necessarily cares, because really, like, when people think about the Emmys, what they really care about is, best picture, best actor, blah, blah, blah. Like, anything that's below that line is relatively insignificant. But if you did win for the broadcast that you worked on as talent, Are they nominating the talent? Are they nominating the overall broadcast? Because I would argue that even if it is just like a award no one cares about, it would still be cool. You could probably still get like a plaque.
I'm certain we won't get anything like that, but it's. I mean,
there
you
would
could
be
do
an
it
Emmy
for
in the
ironic
Valve
bragging
office.
rights,
Yeah.
like Tsunami did, but other than that, I mean, like the fucking esports award. Fucking Kyle kept on bringing up the fact that he's a nominated. What was he nominated for? Best
Like broadcast talent or something, like best analyst or something.
Talent, something like that. Yeah. Anyway, the funny part was he kept bringing it up, and like me and Owen were there, and you're like, yeah, we've both been nominated for that too. Why the fuck are you bragging to us? He was doing it in like the over top Kyle way, like he doesn't really care about that, I don't think. But it was just like, we've also been nominated for that. Kyle was like surprised. He was like, wait, you guys were nominated too? Like, yeah, I was nominated in the very first one that came out. I'm pretty sure Red Eye had a hand in that, if I had to guess. But I got nominated for. I didn't get nominated for play-by-play. I got nominated for like the broader talent one or something like that.
They just wanted a pretty face to put on the poster.
Yeah. All I know is that nobody in Dota is ever going to win something like that on the talent side because nobody cares enough about Dota. Maybe a player or a team or something, we'll get something in there, but none of the talent will ever win because Owen has never won, and that's how I know that nobody else will ever win.
The thing that Dota would win for, if anything, in terms of like awards like that, is TrueSight.
Oh yeah.
Because it is
sure.
A phenomenal piece of media that is just really really well made and genuinely heads and shoulders above like a lot of other.
Where's our
stuff.
TrueSight, Valve?
A trailer released for it like a month ago.
Where is the TrueSight? You're not doing enough.
I wonder if they had to re-edit any of it because of the conflict. I couldn't imagine.
Yeah. I mean, they do like the post, they do the follow-up interviews, but I would have to imagine they would have already finished up with that before all this, right? Like they met with OG and their TrueSight thing, but I feel like that was well before December.
My assumption would be they probably do it like 1 to 2 months out after TI-ish.
Yeah.
That's probably a safe window. So it was probably done before the end of the year, if not before the end of January. Yeah. I'd be shocked if it was done before, if it was done after January. So, and I think because they released a trailer, generally you don't release a trailer to a thing if you haven't captured all the media yet.
I actually didn't know they released a trailer.
It was a while ago.
How long ago was that?
It wasn't recently because I actually, someone who worked on the project, their resume came across my desk and I was on their LinkedIn profile and they saw and they shared the trailer and I was like, wait a second, the trailer was out? Is this like a leak? And then I went, oh no, this was out a while ago. How'd I miss that? But yeah, trailer's out. I doubt they release a trailer that are already having all the footage. It makes me think that they don't have like a full-time editor working on it, which is also bizarre. I would just love to talk to somebody and find out how that works. Like, because the answer to getting it out sooner is also just, it's money. Something is holding up the process. Maybe it's approvals.
Or maybe because TI is later in the year, maybe they want to release it closer to TI to start the hype. Maybe it's awkward doing it during the Ukraine invasion. There's a lot of potential reasons why.
Maybe it's marketing. You know what the Ukraine invasion did that annoyed me, aside from the whole war situation?
Yeah.
Nintendo actually delayed the release of the Advance Wars remaster because of the war. So these things.
Why is there a Russian character in there or something?
I think that Nintendo is incredibly safe with these things, and the whole game is just about war conflict, right? And battling each other with tanks and stuff. So probably not. Sure. They probably don't want memes coming out, and it's also Nintendo. But like, it's not unprecedented to hold media for like marketing and tastefulness reasons. So maybe
that's fair. That's fair.
I got one more thing for you that I'm curious about, that I want to poke you about. Have you heard if Arteezy's okay?
Yeah, I don't know what's going on with that. I'm very curious. So, Evil Geniuses got some sort of sponsorship thing with TurboTax, and they were supposed to put together an Arteezy TurboTax stream where it was actually going to be it wasn't just an Artour stream. He was actually going to be like answering questions and stuff like that or something.
About taxes as a Canadian?
Yeah, about taxes. Sure. Help. And yeah, and then they had a scheduled stream. It was a big deal. Oh my God, Arteezy streaming. And then they canceled that. They did a crit one instead because Arteezy is in the hospital. So that is definitely concerning. I feel kind of bad about it because I have made jokes about our tour being very low energy. And I mean, if you've seen the NADPC, the video that they do, like, hi, I'm Saberlight and I represent TSMFTX. And our tour is just like super low energy, like no cares, like he does. And then as well as like the draft screen, he's like half the time he's asleep and shit like that. I've been making fun of him for that. And then all of a sudden he ends up in the hospital. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know there was an actual like medical problem that was going on there. So I feel bad for him. Hopefully he does better. A lot of people have been commenting about his appearance and how he hasn't looked great. So yeah, wish all the best to him.
There's two things I want to talk about here. One being TurboTax, but to finish up on your point, I like his actual health. Like, I also have like thought about jokes in my head because he just looks rather sleepy, and I wasn't interpreting the sleepiness as potentially an issue, which can manifest in a lot of ways.
That young, when you're that young, you just naturally. Also, he's a gamer. It's just like gamer things, but you don't expect it to actually be a real health issue. So
yeah, I mean, it could be like a medical issue. It could be a mental issue. Like it could be a lot of things, which is scary. So I hope that he is genuinely okay.
Real quick note: all the comments on the people have made a lot of jokes. There's apparently some sort of Chinese meme about like Dove and like his girlfriend and like how she steals his energy and stuff like that. And that's what all the joke comments are in. They're like, it's so gross, man. It's like, player got hospitalized, and people's like first reaction is to make this meme joke about his girlfriend. It's like real gross. I don't know. I'm not feeling that one.
I don't like that. I don't like that either.
That being said, like I understand regular jokes. I just like that joke for me feels particularly tasteless. If you make a Ligma joke, like okay, like. Maybe not the best, but yeah, I don't feel like it's that offensive. But something about that, there's something about that. It doesn't feel right.
It's probably because it's lightly gendered. It's like, oh well, it's the woman that's the problem. Is an interpretation of that. So not a big fan. Probably shit. Hopo Chase is okay. If I was TurboTax and I was in a business relationship with Evil Geniuses where I am paying them money to promote my product via an activation, because TurboTax isn't like a sponsor of EG, like, Monster or what, SteelSeries maybe, like, this is like an activation around tax season that they're doing to get eyeballs on their name, right? And then suddenly, I bet what would happen is that this was sold from the EG Partnerships Department as like, a thing around Arteezy, which will gain a lot of views in a community that's hard to get views around, Dota. And then if suddenly he's pulling out, if I'm the person who's like inking a deal with Evil Geniuses, I would be pretty conflicted because, yes, you're a monster if you're like, oh man, person had to go to hospital, I'm not getting my value out of it, money, money, money. But there was probably a contract drawn up for that stream.
Yeah. And I have to imagine that like the money that changed hands as a result of Crit doing it versus Arteezy was probably significantly diminished at bare minimum.
their eyeballs were diminished, if nothing else. So like their
So
ROI
the
was
money is
lower.
probably
Yeah.
diminished, right? Yeah.
They're probably not paid based on like, actual revenue. Like they agree to like certain deliverables. We'll do this many tweets, this many YouTube videos, this many streams, right? So they probably had to renegotiate that, and that was probably disadvantageous for TurboTax. So I'm interested to see if they try and reschedule the Arteezy stream for a later date, which people will all celebrate around. But first and foremost, he should probably get well.
Yeah, that's a little bit concerning. They did win against Quincy Crew, so they only have to play against TSM FTX as the big, actual teams who could beat them. So I think they're still in a relatively secure spot, even if they had to get a stand-in for our tour. Also, we've already had a delay that seems to be, we had that whole Nigma thing, right, where they were able to delay their series where other teams, for other circumstances or the same circumstances, weren't able to. Mm-hmm. So I have to imagine the precedent is very publicly sent there. Okay, you got COVID, you can delay your series. So I have to imagine EG, if they needed to, should be able to delay their series. They've got their match in 3 days against TSM FTX, and then Dog Champ, which they should beat even without our tour. So, yeah, that only gets awkward if TSM then loses to Quincy Crew, and then you have a 3-way tiebreaker situation.
We've seen it before.
True. But if TSM just beats both EG and Quincy Crew, then it doesn't matter. EG just takes second, and it's all fine. So,
and everybody goes to the major.
Yeah, and that's where the third slot comes in.
Woo!
My conspiracy theory.
It's probably correct. I don't think it's a conspiracy theory. I'm pretty sure that you're just right. I want to talk about patreon.com/sidepole because...
Oh, yeah.
a real natural plug. Like we mentioned earlier, a real professional. I want to talk about patreon.com/sidepole. To one, say thank you for everybody who's supporting us, because Cap and I probably both need MRIs on potentially multiple parts of our bodies now. Not to guilt you into anything, but maybe it worked last week. I saw people sign up, so maybe they wanted to.
It worked last week. Is that why you're doing it again? Oh my god!
Woo! Really, milk the cow.
Monetizing our aging, decrepit bodies.
Dude, my beard is really going gray, and I hate it. I lowered the tier to $5 for people who can ask us questions on the show.
Good work. And
there's some in your Discord chat. If you just want to pull up the first one, we can close out the show with one.
Well, I feel like we're gonna need 2 questions because this first one's really easy to answer. What happened to the Toby episode you guys promised to unfreeze a year after you recorded it? I don't think we actually promised.
I don't think we did.
we?
I don't think
we did. I think we talked about it. But there's definitely no way we ever promised that, because I'm pretty sure we both came to the conclusion that we're probably never going to release that.
If independently too, and collectively, if either of us said that, I would want you to show me, because I think that's fake news. But also, even if we did say that,
are you just gaslighting us into trying to get us to release it? But you promised. You promised us though that you were gonna release it, so now you got to do it.
I think it's redacted because I don't want to, and also I don't think it's worth it or good. There probably is something there. There's like little interesting nuggets, maybe if you're like a hardcore Toby fan, because we talked about some stuff. But like the stuff we talked about, which is like his project at the time, like has been canceled because he was canceled. I didn't mean to tee it up like that, but there we go. And I don't think there's a lot of value in opening up that can of worms. I think that we should just very much just let that lie. We've 98% moved on.
I mean, it's a podcast. Do you think that the image, the visuals on that would just be terrible. The optics of it all, it would just be like, oh, here's this unreleased podcast of us having fun with Toby. Like, that is a terrible look. Also, I don't want to think about Toby. I hate him.
Yeah, I don't want to even see
to be
tweets
clear,
about that.
I hate him. I don't want to release anything about him ever.
So I guess maybe sorry, but also not sorry at all. That one will be for my hard drive forever and always. Maybe one day, in a couple of years, I can crack it open and listen to it myself and then cringe and then report back.
Yeah.
But even then, probably not. 2 questions. You're right. This is a 2-question week.
All right. Is the necessity for magic immunity an indication of a flaw in the game's core design? I don't know how to best phrase the question. Don't worry, I'm already knowing where you're going. So I'll try and explain what I beat. BKB is essential for most cores, even Lifestealer/Jug, and BKB Refresher is a viable build. The fact that there is no alternative makes it seem like BKB is a plaster band-aid over a real flaw. I don't think so. I totally, I get where you're going with this, and I've thought about this multiple times. And what I've kind of settled on is that I don't think that actually means it's a flaw. Just because something is core to the game's design does not mean that it's a flaw. Similarly, just because not every hero is equally viable does not mean that the balance is flawed either. It is okay for heroes to naturally be situationally powerful, but very rarely picked up. They could be viable, but only in a very strict sense, and only a very strict solution, as a very strict solution. Whereas other heroes can be picked up like very early on and be like in 30% of games. That does not mean the game is imbalanced. What that means is that characters have identity. And in order for heroes to be equally viable, they also have to have an equally bland identity, right? That's the only way that actually works. Only way that every hero is evenly viable is if they all just are kind of this gray fucking mess of attributes. And I think the same thing applies to items, basically, is where I'm getting to. Is that it is okay for certain items to be picked up every single game by like 1 or 2 heroes, if not more. Yes, there are ways to nerf BKB, and if you follow the history of Dota 2, BKB has gotten a lot of nerfs. It used to be you could rebuy it. It used to,
that was fun.
like it used to be, it didn't count down. Right? It used to like not count down at all in Dota 1, and then it did start counting down, but people could rebuy the BKB to get a fresh 10-second BKB. It used to be a 10-second one to 10 to 5, now it's 9 to 6, maybe it should go 9 to 5, maybe we need to keep nerfing BKB a bit more. But if you take away BKB or like significantly harm it in any way, it dramatically changes the identity of the game. So I think that offering other solutions. So I think status resistance was actually, even though a lot of people hate it, that is an alternate solution to BKB. That is more how you get around that bit. Pipe, Hood of Defiance, status resistance, like offering other band-aids to what do you do about magic damage is viable. Same goes with BKB piercing disables. Right, those are just part of it. Blink Dagger is a solution to BKB, right? Because you could blink chain stun somebody before they can react. So that's where I lead on it.
Can I think that what might be even a little more interesting is distilling this down to what the spirit of the question might be. And you said Blink Dagger and kind of including it. Is that I think that BKB and Blink Dagger are probably 2 of the most persistent things in Dota throughout its history. In terms of like, I mean, you can say like TP scrolls or other stuff like that, but like those are basic shit. Blink Dagger and BKB has always been solutions that you always see multiple people buy in every game on both teams, no matter what. And I think that if you were to get rid of those items, you just like yoink them out, you'd have a bunch of other balance issues, but other items would just take that spot as the items that everybody buys. I think that there will always naturally be items, more so than heroes, that are the most sought after because of the utility they bring. If that's not BKB, if that's not Blink Dagger, it would be something else. So I don't think it's a flaw. I think it's almost like a virtue of having items, because there'll always be one that is the most applicable to the most people in the most scenarios.
Yeah, I would agree. Yeah, I would just reiterate the fact that that these sort of things don't make it a flaw. The fact that there are some things that are more popular than others, that there are some concepts that are integral and like very core to the game design, like magic damage. Like if like in order to approach this, you would basically have to change. You would have to make some triad of magic damage, physical damage, and like some other damage, like some like form of like cure damage or something like that. And you would have to make basically a BKB for all three of them. And you could see where I'm going with this, right? Like all of a sudden everything is equally balanced and it's like, oh, this is a magic lineup. They're gonna go the BKB. This is a pure damage lineup. Looks like the pure damage BKB is really good. You know, it's just like, it's all meh. Dota's always a game about extremes. Remember that. That is why it's a strategy game, because the extremes that the heroes operate on in power levels, and the same applies to items.
My biggest flaw as a Dota player, specifically a Dota player who primarily plays position 1, is that I have always had a resistance to buying BKB.
Every core player, every carry does. I don't know what is wrong with you people, but you always want to buy some other item that's not a fucking Black King bar. What is wrong with you guys? Why can't you just be normal people who play team fights? Why do you have to get some extra efficiency item? Oh, look, but when I buy my 9-second BKB at 45 minutes, it's going to be really good. How about we just win the game in 25 minutes? Huh, motherfucker? How about that? How about instead of going to 45 minutes, how about we just win the game right now with a BKB that they can't do anything against? Is that okay? Is that okay with you? Oh, I mean, is it okay if we win the game when it's 5 people playing Dota and not like, uh-oh, it's 60 minutes in, looks like our carry has to 1v5. Is that okay with you? Or do you have such sick main character syndrome that the game has to revolve around you? It has to be all about you being able to carry the rest of your team over the line at the darkest hour. Is you have some sort of fucking need to be a hero complex that you just have to be able to win the game at the very end with your fucking 6 slotted items? I hate you guys.
I feel like I shamed myself, and then you really took it to 11, but that's okay. I also don't think that it's always core on Chaos Knight, but every other carry I play, almost certainly. I think if I would have learned to do that earlier in my Dota career, I mean, I still don't even do as much as I should. I would have just been a significantly better player and had a higher rank and felt better about myself.
Yeah, all carry players could probably gain like 1,000 MMR if they just bought a BKB as like their first or second item. They'd be amazed at like, oh my god, I'm skyrocketing in MMR. Oh wow. No.
I'm gonna close it out on my favorite BKB change. When the mana cost went down to 0, I think that was one of the most interesting changes that happened to the item.
Remember when Blink Dagger didn't have a cooldown?
I don't think I played Dota.
Like a damage cooldown. That was back in Dota 1. Dota 1, there was a period of time. Vigos God. They were Vigos and his team were the gods of Dota back when Blink Dagger had no damage cooldown. So you could blink whenever you wanted, as long as it was like people could be hitting you, but as long as the natural cooldown of blink was up, you could blink away. And it just became blink battles, and everyone would blink. And Vigos and his team, I don't remember who they were like fucking. They were on crack, man. They were reaction gods on, you know, like. This was Warcraft 3 Dota, so reaction gods means they reacted within half a second because everybody was slower, plus the Warcraft 3 ping and all that shit. But they were gods.
I'm not a god, and I should probably buy a BKB more.